Welcome to the first episode of Melon Heavy Music. I am your host with the Creepy Cans, Nikki, and today I'm excited to be bringing you my top 5 favorite horror movie soundtracks. So, I won't claim to be an expert in the subject, but I can say that these are my top 5 favorite. So, if you're interested, I have also made a Spotify playlist that you can find in the comments. So all the songs that I'm going to talk about today are on that playlist, so you can give that a listen if you'd like. All right, let's go ahead and dive into some frighteningly funky beats. Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a movie that's honestly unlike any other, and so it's really fitting that the soundtrack should match. The title track for the Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the theme song, is performed by the Dickies. I am a really big fan of the Dickies, actually, and so if you're not familiar with them, they have been in the punk scene since, I want to say 1977. So you're talking about a group that's been making music for over 40 years, and their last few albums are still amazing. So this theme that they've created for the Killer Clowns from Outer Space back in the 80s still holds up today. You have the really creepy organ circus music in the background throughout the song, and it's really just unsettling from the beginning. You have a very energetic and playful guitar, and so the whole song just really comes together and creates a perfect theme. You really couldn't have a movie like Killer Clowns from Outer Space without a theme like this to match it. If you're looking for more songs by the Dickies to check out, I would recommend also looking at their song You Drive Me Ape. It's another really energetic, playful, fun song, and I think you'll really like it. Next up on my list, we have Stephen King's directorial debut, Maximum Overdrive. Now, if you've never seen this coke-fueled masterpiece of mechanical mayhem, then you are really missing out on one kickin' soundtrack. Maximum Overdrive is set to the music of AC/DC, who created an entire album just for this movie. So the album, of course, called Who Made Who, features both some existing tracks that they had hits at the time, and then also some new material that was written directly for Maximum Overdrive. Personally, I was a fan of AC/DC and had heard Who Made Who several times, and liked it, but did not know that it was part of Maximum Overdrive. So imagine my absolute glee the first time that I'm watching the movie and realize the soundtrack is all AC/DC. I really loved it. So the album does feature a few other big hits from them. For example, you have Hell's Bells and For Those About to Rock. So lots of great songs on that album. To me, it almost makes the movie feel like one long AC/DC music video, which almost would make more sense than the way Stephen King directed it.
This machine just called me an asshole.
Honestly, it's not too often that you're going to find me fawning over anything that you might consider minimalist. However, John Carpenter's theme for Halloween is both hauntingly simple and simply amazing. Carpenter himself crafted the entire score for the movie, and of course that includes the title track. So this song enters with a really trill synthesizer and some simple staccato notes that are then joined by a really resounding deep, few chords. And so the score really taps into your emotions as the listener, and I feel that in this way Carpenter is really amazing at bringing not only your your visual senses in with the use of color and lighting, but also to tap into your your oral senses, is really an amazing feat to do as a director. And so the song really feeds into the ambiance of the movie. The pace is slow, yet sets you on edge and really gives you a sort of tense feeling. And to be able to manipulate the emotions of your audience using such a simple soundtrack, I think is really fabulous. I mean, how many horror movie soundtracks can say that they're discussed in Berklee courses? Once in a while, a movie comes along that is the perfect mix of attitude and horror and fashion and music, and in my opinion, Return of the Living Dead is one of those movies. Everything in this movie is done very well, from the fashion to the sets to the humor. I mean, everything is fantastic. And I'm trying to keep this video about the music, so I'm not going to talk about the amazing cemetery scene with Trash and her amazing grave dance. We'll also not talk about the car ride where nobody can seem to find a towel for the poor girl. So back to the music. Of course, a movie like this would need an attitude-packed 80s punk soundtrack, and they definitely delivered. You have tracks like The Surfin' Dead from the Cramps, amazing band, amazing song, and it just fits perfect. Also, from the aptly named Flesh Eaters, we have Eyes Without a Face, and not to be confused with the Billy Idol song Eyes Without a Face. Don't worry, you can tell the two tracks apart because this one's much better. Honestly, this soundtrack is the high energy soundtrack that you need when you're watching a movie like this, and it's also the perfect soundtrack if you should ever find yourself in a situation where you can feel yourself rot.
Fall into a world I don't understand. Try to get a photo and represent. Every time I love someone in the eye, they trip up and start to
Alright, so the final movie on my list today is Queen of the Damned. This movie might seem a little out of place to you on the list, and it is a little bit. I mean, it's made at least 15 years after any of the other movies, and it also has a totally different vibe, but it does still count as a horror movie, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on my list. The movie first came out in 2002, and at the time I was absolutely obsessed with it. And there were two main reasons why I really couldn't get enough of this movie. I mean, I seriously saw it in theaters probably 15 times. So some of the reasons that I love this movie: number one, Aaliyah. May she rest in peace. Look at this hottie. I had first been introduced to her music the year before when she did the song Try Again for Jet Li's movie Romeo Must Die. Honestly, I've never seen that movie, but the soundtrack I know at least was great because that song is perfect. The music video for that song is amazing. So yeah, it was awesome. The other reason that I was obsessed with this movie, of course, along with Aaliyah, was the total soundtrack. The soundtrack is really wild. The whole album features a lot of the really big names of the time. So you have songs from Deftones, songs from Papa Roach, you name it. One of the interesting things about this movie is they also had some frontmen from some of the really popular bands at the time do some separate tracks. So you get a really rhythmically haunting System by Chester Bennington, who of course was the frontman from Linkin Park. May he rest in peace as well. The other song that really stands out to me on the soundtrack is Jay Gordon of Orgy did the song Slept So Long. And honestly, the song is just, it's perfect. Really, there's so many great songs on this soundtrack. Now, to be fair, there are a few songs, in my opinion, that kind of detract from the overall vibe of the soundtrack. So if you put me in charge, there's a few songs on the soundtrack that I would change. However, in all fairness to the soundtrack, you would be really hard-pressed to find another movie with a soundtrack that really embodied the popular rock and industrial music of the year that it came out. So, you know, if you're looking for a movie that's really going to sum up music in 2002 for you, I really think you're hard-pressed to find another movie better than Queen of the Damned. If any of these songs have caught your interest, feel free to check out the Spotify playlist that I've linked in the comments. I've got all of the songs that I discussed today on that playlist. Also, if you want to haunt me on social media, you can certainly find me on Twitter and on Instagram. Thanks for tuning in to the first episode of Melon Heavy Music. I'm, of course, your host with the Creepy Cans, Nikki, and I hope you'll join me each week as I bring you a new music, movie, toy, you name it, a new review.